Welcome, this is Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and joining me today is an esteemed person. She's going for her PhD, all this jazz. I don't even know how to explain it all. And a big reason why I'm having her on now is because almost a year ago, obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic really started to make its impact in the United States, shutting down the NBA and stuff like that. And Avery Puskas was trapped in Spain for a time on her study abroad. And I mean, you said the words deported, correct? I mean, you were basically deported from Spain back to America. And I just think it's incredible with all that. So she's going to tell us that story of being abroad during a worldwide pandemic and coming back and all that jazz. And then we'll talk about something else. So, Avery, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Zach. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Of course. Second time, you know. I mean, I think it's almost like we are now actual friends instead of through Thorn
Right?
being friends. But yes.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's really exciting to feel like we're actual friends now instead of just friends through my boyfriend. I feel like I've adopted all of his friends now.
Well, of course. And obviously, you know, you with the New Year's hangout we had as well this past year, you were you got to the house before we were driving up to BG, and you were like, you're like, where are the other girls? Where are the girlfriends? And we were all like, yeah, no, they're not coming. They had other commitments.
Hold on that one. I definitely felt the trickery.
But that's fun. So yeah, so I guess like obviously kind of yeah, I believe for the people you introduced yourself mostly on the last one. So maybe just an update on how you've been doing with your progress. I mean, I know you're in a much more advanced schooling, and I've tried to figure it out. I struggle to. I know it's what you're doing, that type of thing with the PhD, all that jazz, and then also kind of like how you ended up in Spain for the study abroad program last year. Because I think it's really cool to hear why people go abroad and do all that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'm technically an early master's candidate at Miami University. So I'm getting my master's and my bachelor's at the same time for Spanish. And then I'm also doing a French BA. So basically when you do a language, obviously it's important that you go abroad. So I went to Spain. I was studying in like South Spain in a place called Granada. And then, kind of just enjoying our time and hanging out. And then all of a sudden, we get this whole pandemic thing going on, which kind of put a damper on things, since that's the most important part of your education as a language major. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Now I'm back here, still studying, but definitely without my abroad education in hand.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense, the impact of going abroad and actually being immersed in that culture, right? The only thing I know about Spanish cities and European cities at large, other than the ones I've been to, is through soccer. So Granada is a very tough team to play all the time for Barcelona to play. So that
it was a soccer game. That's what sucks. We had like really good tickets to go and see Granada play in Barcelona, and we never actually got to go and see them, which was disappointing.
Right. So obviously, you're over there. How long were you actually there for? Because
I want to say we hit almost exactly the 2-month mark, and I was supposed to be there for just a little over 4 months.
Okay, so you got like halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so not like it wasn't one of those where it's like 2 months into a full year type situation.
Right. Yeah, the full year was going to be too hard with, Thorin being here and my family being here. It was just too much for me. Right.
So with COVID, obviously, it hit Italy especially pretty early, obviously after China, and then came to America, maybe a week or two after all of that, in droves, I should say.
Yeah.
So did you hear about it earlier than like we did, for instance? Because I'm pretty sure I had a podcast up where I was like, this doesn't seem like people are freaking out about this. I don't know if this is the biggest deal. And I was wrong, of course, with that one. So, and then initially now, like, I'm kind of, I feel like we've done a lot better with it recently than a year ago. But like, so did you hear about it earlier, I guess, than all of us? And you were kind of like, hey guys, this is coming type thing.
Yeah. So what's actually ironic about my trip is that, so I had friends that were all over Europe at the time. One of my best friends was in Luxembourg. And so we were planning trips across Europe. We would meet up in a city and hang out there for the weekend. And one of our weekend trips was to Milan. And the weekend that we were going to go to Milan was the weekend that COVID hit. And, I said to them, guys, I don't think this is a good idea. We shouldn't go. We need to cancel our plane tickets and get, our vouchers while we still have them. And they were like, no, we're going to go. It's in 2 weeks. This is all going to blow over. It's just the flu, whatever. So I actually never purchased my flight because I was really paranoid. And they ended up purchasing flights. So some of them, from what I understand, ended up going, and they got stuck in Milan because they put a travel ban. So now we've got students that are stuck in a city. They can't get back home to their homestay. They can't leave the country. They're running out of money because, Milan is a very expensive city. So I know that my program had quite a few people go to Italy who got stuck there, and it was a mess. I mean, they were literally trapped and wasting all of their money on hotels and food. They couldn't do anything else. So that was really scary. For quite.
Wow.
And then what was even crazier was that Spain was kind of the next place to get hit the hardest. So we had trackers on our phones that were telling us, how many COVID diagnoses happened each day. And we just watched that number go up by the thousands. And I said from day one, we're getting sent home. There's no way that we are going to stay here the full 4 months. And sure enough, they ended up deporting us. So that was insane.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know there was a stretch there, after talking to you after you did get back and everything, and you're just like, yeah, I didn't know. You thought you were coming home, but didn't know how it was going to happen or anything like that. You're trying to find flights, all this jazz. So so once you realize you need to come home, how does that process unfold for you? In your state of mind as well, because you're a college student in a foreign country. It's ridiculous.
So around the halfway point, we pretty much knew we're not going to make it the full time here. There was pretty much a guarantee that we were getting sent home. And my director of the AIFS program that I was in, she pretty much alluded to the fact that this isn't going to work anymore. You guys are going to end up going home. So a friend and I decided we're going to make one more weekend trip. We're going to go to Belgium, spend the weekend in Belgium, do a chocolate tour, do a beer tour, just kind of enjoy what we were assuming was going to be our last weekend or last week there. So the way that we were traveling is we weren't flying out of Granada. It was too expensive. Granada is a really big city. Your flight, going out of Granada could be, 1,000 euros. So we were flying in and out of Malaga, which was about 2 hours away by bus. So we took a bus. We went to Malaga for the weekend. We stayed overnight in a hostel, and then at 5 a.m. we got up and we went to go and catch our flight. So, we go through check-in, go through security, we sit at our gate, we're waiting. We are actually boarding the plane now. I'm getting onto the plane, and I get an email from Miami University, and it's saying, hey, if you're an abroad student in Europe, if you're an abroad student in Asia, you have basically 24 hours to get home. Okay, well, I'm not even in my homestay. I'm boarding a flight, getting onto the plane physically, 2 hours away from my homestay, let alone getting home. I'm in a different continent. So we actually ended up disembarking our plane, and, we were kind of stuck. We're 2 hours away from home. We don't have bus tickets until Sunday, and it's not like I could call my parents because we were on a 6 to 7 hour time difference.
Yeah.
So they're asleep. So we ended up coming back home, and it was kind of like a rush to get home because the price gouging was insane. They were asking for $3,000 to $5,000 just to get people out of Spain.
Jeez.
I know. So then, I get back to Granada. That in and of itself was a plight. And I spent, I want to say 5 to 6 hours on the phone with Delta, trying to get out of the EU, because the EU is getting ready to shut its borders. And once they do that, you're stuck. There's no going anywhere. So the goal was just get out of the European Union, whether that means I'm in Morocco, London, on an island, who cares? So I ended up calling my family in London, and I've got quite a bit of family there, and I was like, hey, I need a place to stay, basically. And so within 24 hours, I was out of the EU in London. which
Oh, that's
was,
right. Because sorry, I was thinking London. What do you mean? And I was like, I forgot Great Britain left.
yeah, they left. So, I mean, lucky for me, they left.
Yeah, there you go. So you are a fan of Brexit. There you go. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to derail your story there. I was thinking in my head, I was like, wait, London, that's England. But yes, okay, got it. So now you're in London.
Yeah, so now I'm in London. I've got a flight back home within another 24 to 48 hours, and I'm going to go to Boston. And from Boston, I'm going to fly to Cleveland. Well, Trump decides, well, I'm going to make only certain airports available to accept people from abroad. Boston was not one of those airports. So now my flight is canceled, and it was already hard enough to get a flight back to the U.S. Now my flight is canceled. Now I'm stranded in London. So I went from being stranded in Spain to being stranded in London. So my parents and I spent the entire day on the phone with Delta again. My parents were actually driving to the airport because they had been on hold for almost 8 hours, just on the phone, trying to get a flight. So you can imagine the mass exodus that was happening from Europe. So I finally get another flight, and it's going to Atlanta. But the problem is I have 30 minutes to get my connecting flight to Cleveland once I land.
In Atlanta, too, right?
In Atlanta. And I don't know. I mean, you can imagine the size of the Atlanta airport. It's huge.
It's the biggest. I was gonna say it's the biggest airport I've been in my life.
Yeah, so I've got 30 minutes not only to get across the airport, but to get through customs on top of that.
Oh, Jesus.
So, I get to London Airport, I get through Heathrow, I land in Atlanta. The CDC boards our plane in hazmat suits. I mean, it literally feels like, what's that movie on Netflix that everybody started watching with the pandemic?
Is it Contagion?
Contagion. It literally felt like Contagion.
Well, I have to write a paper on that this weekend, on that movie for my epidemiology class. So I haven't seen it yet, but I guess I have to think about it in a COVID sense, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It literally felt like I was like this alien coming in, that I wasn't accepted. And so they checked all of our temperatures as we, disembarked from our plane. They escorted us through the airport to customs. I mean, and at the time we don't have masks. So I'm just around all of these people now. But I make my connecting flight just barely. And it was funny because the gate that I was at, it was a canceled flight to Rome. So that was a little comical for me. But I ended up home, had to pretty intensely quarantine for 2 weeks with the health department down my throat. And I ended up with suspected COVID. I had some really bad chest pains and ended up in the ER for that. But I mean, it's a miracle that I made it home in general. So.
I mean, and then especially I can't even imagine being abroad for all that. Obviously, living abroad, because I've visited Barcelona, Paris, and of course Madrid. And just the uniqueness there, so I can only imagine just finally getting your feet under you in Granada, and then obviously going through that. I mean, it's incredible. 4 different cities like that, and I just imagine with the strict timelines you're getting, you just have to you're just panicking the whole time, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the goal was just get home, because I mean I feel like now everybody's pretty comfortable with the pandemic. I mean, comfortable is kind of an abstract word in this sense, because nobody's comfortable, but we're as comfortable as we can be at this point. But if we think back to a year ago, this was the killer virus. This is, the end of the world as we know it. Everything shut down. You can't get in and out of anything. This was the end for us. So you can imagine, you just want to be with your family. You just want to be at home where you're comfortable and safe. And I'm across the world in a country whose language I'm barely fluent in. I would say almost, but not quite. Now I'm being chucked around, different countries, just trying to get back to my home base. The goal at that point was just get into the United States. It wasn't even, get home. It was just get into the United States. Because I had friends who were stuck in California, who lived in Maine. They were just stuck there. Their parents couldn't get to them. They couldn't get a flight. I had other friends who were stuck in Morocco. They got trapped there because they shut the borders. I mean, it was insanity.
Yeah, and especially, like you said, at that time, I mean, and like comfortable is one way to put it. And I just think, we know like a lot more information about the virus, and the policies now are enacted, and cases have been dropping recently, especially with the vaccine coming out. So I agree with you that it's a much different mindset now than it was then, because you're right. Then it's like, oh my God, this thing spreads really quickly and it's going to kill 20 million people. And I'm not trying to say, I believe the U.S. crossed over the 500,000 mark of deaths recently. So I'm not trying to minimize all of the people that we've unfortunately lost through this, but at that time we thought it would kill everybody. Like you said, we thought it was another Black Plague or something like that, or the Spanish flu of 1918, and it turns out it wasn't. Once we figured out more of how to treat it, but I agree. Like, and you're right. Just, I mean, all those countries shutting down, all that stuff. It's just insanity, like you said.
Well, I know of a story where there were a few girls that were studying abroad in Spain. And I believe their mothers came to visit them, and they went on a weekend trip to Morocco. Morocco shut its borders, and they were stuck in Morocco. A lot of people don't know this, but there's Spanish embassies in Morocco because Spain has some territory in Africa. So everybody was trying to get these, women to the embassy so that they could get out. They were just stranded there. And I don't know if you know this about Morocco, but they have some very traditional views there about white women, alone, Catholics. I mean, that's one of the reasons I never went to Morocco. I've got a cross tattooed on my wrist. So I can only imagine, the fear of being stranded in a country whose language you don't speak, whose culture you don't quite understand, with no way out, and you're running out of funds, basically.
Yeah. And especially with, I think Morocco gets... I mean, I don't want to trash a country I don't know that much about, but a lot of times, they're not associated with that. They're more, they're it's that type of thing. But they, I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast. I would say shout out, but everybody knows about that podcast who listens to this 100%. But he had UFC heavyweight contender Francis Ngannou on, who is from Cameroon, and I believe he tried so many, I forgot the exact number, but I was listening to the podcast. Most of the podcast, and for people who don't know, Rogan's episodes go like 3 hours long. Most of the podcast was Ngannou talking about how he got from Cameroon to France, and it took 2 hours because of how many times he failed. And a lot of those failures came because he'd be on, like, in the water towards Morocco, or near the Morocco trying to get to Spain. Because it's not that far. I'm looking at my map. It's not that far from Morocco to Spain by water. Obviously, it's far trying to swim, but... What'd you say?
I said you can take a boat. It's like one of the islands in Cleveland. You're on the boat or a ferry for a little while, and then you're there.
Okay. So he was trying to do that, obviously, and get in and claim asylum and do that whole thing. And... They said every time the Moroccan authorities, I believe, I'm correct in this, I believe it was Moroccan, authorities captured him and his couple of friends that were trying to do it, they'd just drop you off in the desert, whichever desert is near there, just with nothing, and just be like, have fun. I believe so. I don't want to, I'm 99% sure that's what I heard, and I believe it was Morocco. So, that's what I'm saying, people, don't cite me in any research paper, but... But yeah, it was just crazy to me, and it was just funny you brought up Morocco with that.
Have you had?
Have I what?
Have you had COVID yet?
No, I have not.
Lucky. Yeah.
Are you comfortable talking about your experience or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was. So we got COVID just a few weeks ago. So I guess it would have been the very end of January.
Yep.
We came down to Miami, and my friend came back. And she told me, I came in contact with somebody who tested positive. I got tested. I'm negative. I'm coming home. And we were like, hey, as long as you tested negative, you're more than welcome. So she gets down here. Her boyfriend comes down to visit. He goes to Kent. And I want to say he got here on a Thursday. And on Friday, she woke up and she goes, I've got symptoms. And I thought, there's no way. You tested negative. It's in your head. We live in a valley, so we call it the sinus valley. Everybody comes down here, and you're immediately just sick. So I was like, no way, you've got the sinus valley, you've just got a sinus infection. So I actually worked that weekend.
Oh, wow.
While she got tested. I mean, that's how positive we were that she didn't have this. There was no way, her symptoms weren't really lining up. No fever. She just felt off. And I was like, I'm going to work. So I went to work, and on Sunday, I was done with work. I woke up and having breakfast, and she texted me, I'm positive. And I said, no freaking way. Her boyfriend's positive too. So now Thorin, my boyfriend's been here all weekend. Our other roommate's been here, and now we're stuck. Now we're quarantined. So they were like, should we wear masks around the house? What should we do? And I'm like, at this point, there's no way that the rest of us don't have it. We've been hanging out all weekend. We live in the same house. We use the same kitchen, the same bathrooms. How could we not have it? And the craziest part is, so we all got it. And I tested negative every single time. I got tested like 7 times, but I was the only one with respiratory symptoms.
Wow.
We all had different symptoms. It was like getting a cold. Like one roommate was throwing up every day. Thorin had like really bad sinus issues, almost like he had a cold. I was coughing my head off. The other guy was pretty much asymptomatic, and then he got like some sinus congestion, and the other roommate was fine for like a week, and then in the second week, she was just nauseous. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's super weird how it affects different people like that, because you guys are all healthy, 21-year-olds type thing, and I know there's a lot of people who, I mean, especially in Florida where I live, who just are going out doing whatever because they think they're invincible, and it's like, no, this. I mean, some people are. It won't affect people. Like, I'm confident if I were to get it, I don't think it would cause severe issues for me. But then again, like, I could just be wiped out with a flu-like type deal, and I mean, the flu sucks to go through for 5 days or so and wipe me out from work. So.
Have you ever had mono?
No.
Well, I don't know if you know, like, how mono, like, works. I'm assuming you do. You're very, very intelligent, but...
yeah, I know the general basis, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I had mono, and you're basically down and out. Like, you can't, like, make breakfast without feeling exhausted. So I never lost my appetite, but I will tell you, I still have a lot of trouble with the exhaustion. I mean, a month later, and we're still kind of coughing. We're still, on the up. But the exhaustion, I would say it's just as bad, if not worse, than mono.
Yeah, and so you're still dealing with it a month later, you're saying?
Oh yeah, Thorin is still pretty much. His cough is better, but he's been coughing for the last month. And working out, I mean, our lungs are all, even the people who didn't have respiratory symptoms, we struggle with getting our heart rate up, and like doing cardio at the gym is pretty much a no-go.
Wow. That's insane, and that goes against a lot of what some people will tell you about what should happen with 21-year-olds. But again, I know, so obviously people know I've gotten into the UFC a lot. There's one guy who's on the rise. I can't pronounce his name. I believe his first name he pronounces Khazmat. He's from Russia or some Eastern European country, and he's a rising stud. And obviously with UFC, these are the fittest of the fittest, because you have to be great with abs, great punching, great with legs. Like, they're just jacked, right? So you think if COVID's going to not affect anybody, it's going to be these young 30, 20-year-old guys and girls who are the rippest people on the planet. And he's had to cancel 2 fights. They've tried to reschedule him twice, and he still has lingering effects. It's just a very odd illness with that. And we've pinpointed a lot of different things that can help. Obviously, a lot of vitamins. Taking vitamins can help. A lot of vitamin D, especially, and then obviously with social distancing, and then the different treatments, right, when you do have it, are helpful, but there's still some type of genetic thing that people might have that we're still not sure of, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, so I want to say like a week after, maybe 2 weeks after I was cleared, I tried to go to the gym, and I just tried to do some light cardio, and I have asthma, so I mean, I think that's why I got hit so hard with the respiratory problems, but so I know what an asthma attack feels like, and I I started to do some light cardio, just like the Stairmaster for 10 minutes. And oh my God, I have never felt like that in my life. It literally felt like my lungs were on fire. It hurt to breathe. I was like holding my breath, and then I was like gasping for air because my lungs hurt so bad. I mean, it was insanity. And it didn't even feel like, an asthma attack or bronchitis. It literally just felt like my lungs were on fire.
Wow. That's insane. I haven't heard any other illness that's like that.
Neither. I mean, I've had bronchitis, like I said, the asthma thing pretty much guarantees you, but that was crazy. I mean, it was really scary. I was like, am I dying?
Yeah, for sure. No, I understand that 100%. And I want to circle back because I looked it up to make sure I was right. So the Nagano thing, and so I remembered whatever the final country was he was trying to escape from was the one that put him and his friends in the desert repeatedly with no food or water or anything like that. And it was Morocco, and he failed 7 times. So just wanted to circle back on that I looked that up from a different interview. But that podcast was amazing for anybody who wants an inspirational story. But anyway.
Watch the Joe Rogan podcast.
You do? Or no?
No, I've never watched it. Everybody raves about it, but I don't know if I could sit there for 3 hours.
So, and yeah, that's the thing. So I listen at 1.5 speed usually, like how my lectures, so that makes it a bit shorter. But for me, what I really like it just because, I mean, people meme Joe Rogan hard, and like, I get it. But he even says it during his podcasting, and some elements I try to take from it too is that he starts every podcast or a lot of podcasts with like, yeah, I'm an idiot. Like when he's a real expert on, he's like, I'm an idiot. Like I'm just gonna ask questions and try to figure things out. Just talk to me. Yeah. And so and then also I listen to every episode now, but he has such a diverse set of people on that you could be like, okay, I want to listen to only science people, and you'll probably listen to 1 episode a week. Or I want to listen to comedians, and there's more comedians on there, or like some athletes type thing. So it's just a good mix of people. And he also, in terms of, we can use this as a transition point too for the end of the show here. But like I'm a politically moderate, and so he's very like he describes himself as being socially liberal, like who cares about what people do type thing, like it doesn't affect me, which I think is a great perspective. And then more fiscally conservative type thing. I believe that's what he describes it as, or it just describes himself as probably leaning more left. But still, like he just talks to people. Like he's had people from Alex Jones, whatever you think about him, to Bernie Sanders on. So it's just interesting to hear those people talk for that length of time too. Different than the soundbite on CNN type thing, where it's like I don't really know. Like listening to the Bernie Sanders one is really interesting because I was like, oh, so this is how you actually plan to do this type thing. And I know you were a Bernie fan, but so yeah, I guess that's why I like it. But even though people meme on him, because he does say some dumb stuff, but then again, if the amount of whiskey he drinks sometimes during podcasts, like I mean, it's a bold move.
We're going to just drink the whole podcast and just let it go. Let's see what happens.
Well, they did that, I think, with Post Malone, I believe. He had, like, I don't know if they did shrooms or something like that, but then they went for 4 hours.
No, you know what I did when I was abroad, though? I'll tell you this as an end note. When I had access to Wi-Fi, I downloaded all of your podcasts. And when I was on, like, the plane or whatever, when I couldn't use my phone, I would listen to all your downloaded podcasts because I missed home and I missed you guys, so.
Oh. Well, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I'm glad I was able to provide that. But, like, no, I hope I hope they were good episodes, too. You can't tell me you were listening to the sports ones, though. Come on.
I pretty much downloaded the ones that you and Thorin did. I think those ones are the funniest.
Yeah, no, him and I have a great dynamic, and that's what I always tell people. I was like, we owe the Marvel Universe for our friendship, and they go, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, Thor and I had always been friends, and I was closer with Michael though, just through soccer, and Captain America: Civil War came out, and Thorne and I." Thorne is a big Captain America guy, for people who may not have heard him recently. And I'm a big Iron Man guy, and so we were like, okay, we have to see this movie together. And now it's almost like when I'm home and there's a Marvel movie that comes out, like we have to see it together. There's no other rule.
We've seen together.
How many?
Yeah, I think we've seen at least 2 or 3 together in theaters.
We definitely did Civil War. We definitely did. I remember I made him wait a week for me to watch Endgame, I believe, and Infinity War, because those came out in April-ish at the end of the semester. So I remember I made him wait for both of those.
Oh yeah, because we went and saw those ones together. Somehow we managed to sneak in like a full 4-course meal. Chipotle, we had candies. Oh, I remember that. That was a good night. That was fun.
No, that was a fantastic night. So yeah, those three at least. I probably too, like Doctor Strange might have been in there, like Black Panther. Maybe I don't think we did Captain Marvel. It just depends on the timing since I've been here. But I know Black Widow comes out in May, so if I'm home or whatever.
Did I ever tell you how we figured out Goose's name? So Goose is my cat.
I mean, I know now that you mentioned it. I was always wondered that, so I know now. But share for the listeners.
So Goose, we thought it was from Top Gun. You know, Goose is like the sidekick, so we thought, oh, Goose is our sidekick. But come to find out, and this is so appropriate for Thorin and his love of Marvel. In the movie Captain Marvel, there's a little orange tabby cat who looks just like Goose, and his name is Goose. So we've decided if we ever get another pet, we're going to name him Marvel, so we have Marvel and Goose.
Oh, that's adorable. So, no, that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, and it's weird too. I mean, Thorne's going to come back on for WandaVision in a couple weeks.
Yeah, he was watching it this morning in bed.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it, so I have to binge it hard because with sports commitments and stuff like that. But I'm excited for it to watch it all. But yeah, so that's coming up. That's a teaser coming up. I think whatever the last episode is, it's gonna be the following Monday. I have it written down in my planner. But yeah, I mean, it's super fun, and I'm excited to see you guys all again, get the band back together, and do that whole thing. So I mean, you guys gotta come to Florida.
I know. I think we're gonna come. I don't know, because we were gonna come for spring break, but now we don't have spring break.
Right. Well,
So,
I'll be here over the summer, so we can figure something out.
On us in, we're down.
Yeah, let's do it. So there we go. Thank you, Avery, for coming on and sharing all your stories and stuff like that. It was really it was eye opening to hear all that, I would say.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always good to talk with you.